Andrew, how are you?
Living the dream, sir. What about yourself?
Beyond that.
Yeah, it's on for sale.
It's 1 o'clock, so we'll call the Facilities Committee meeting for Wednesday, April 17th to order. There's no public comment. We'll move to the approval section. Item 1, minutes from the March 20th, 2024 Facilities Committee meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
I'll second.
Motion second, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Second item is contract award 4002 Basin CIPP Rehabilitation Project. Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. Basin 4002 is the largest sewer basin that we maintain. It serves the majority of the city of Brunswick south of Gloucester and portions north of Gloucester up to I and J Street. It serves the courthouse, county courthouse, Pate Building, all of the city offices and things like that. Also serves this building, 4002 does. And we've done CCTV inspection of the entire basin, and we've got a project here to reline with CIPP, cured in place piping rehab, trenchless rehab of 26,883 linear feet of pipe, ranging in diameter from 6-inch to 24-inch. We had 5 bids that were turned in on March 26th with the apparent low bid of Bionomic Services in the amount of $1,748,773. There is an attached bid form here for you, and I'll point out that on the bid form, line items 16 through 25 and then 28 and 29 will be billed out as needed on those. On line items 4 and 5, they're required to do a pre-cleaning inspection, pre-lining inspection on these, so they put the camera in the line, and then if any of these line items are needed, if it requires heavy sewer cleaning, which there's a definition in the specifications, or it requires a lateral cut or something like that, they're required to submit that to the project manager and get confirmation prior to proceeding, and then we approve that, and then they'll be billed out at the units as allowed. So the way these work, most likely the total contract amount will come in above the $1.7 million, but it will be bid out as the line items are allowed, and that will not change the outcome of the bid due to the spread of the bid and the line items being very close on those items. So we recommend awarding this contract to Bionomics. They've done an extensive amount of work for us, and they're very qualified. This is paid for out of the balance of the GFA loan that was used for the Academy Creek project. There's $4.5 million left on that GFA loan. We will not get anywhere near that with this project, so we'll be able to close that loan out for less than the original $15 million value. And we still have a portion of the loan forgiveness to receive on that as well.
You have to come back to the commission for the approval of the items that may or may not get done.
What we do typically is on the end of these projects, we bring back one final balancing change order. That this is how many we used and everything like that, and it's just at the end of it. These line items didn't get used, this line item got used 4 times, and we just bring you one final balancing one. Because otherwise, we're gonna stop work as they're going through it, and we typically have not done that.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend awarding a contract for the 4002 Basin cured in place piping rehabilitation project to Bionomic Services, Inc. in the amount of $1,748,173.
I'll second.
I will say there we'll have to put out public notice on traffic interruptions. These lines, most of the time in Brunswick, are in the middle of the streets. A lot of this will require night and weekend work, so they'll have to be coordinated with businesses and things like that are going on. There's the lines in between the courthouse and the Pate Building are in need of rehab, so those will obviously be done on the weekends, things like that. So this is not going to be a typical 8 to 5 Monday through Friday.
Todd, can you pull
job.
up on the thing so we can see where these lines are?
That's what I
If
wanted
you got
to
access
ask for
to
the load.
And show the line of sizes. We're addressing every line in that area, right?
Not every line. What we've done is we go through and we inspect the lines, and as we inspect the line, everything gets a score of 1 to 5 based
Okay.
off of the severity of any deficiencies with the pipe. So these are the ones that were a minimum 4 or 5 in the basin that could be rehabbed trenchlessly. Some of them are 4 or 5s we're gonna have to dig. We can't line them.
Are they mostly clay pipes?
Most of these are clay. Some of it's old iron pipe, but the vast majority is clay. If you'll go into the folder, if you can go into the project folder for it, Todd, it's got there's a map in it that show which lines are.
And what are the size lines that we're gonna?
6 to 24. The bulk of it is 12-inch pipe, but
And how many manholes are we rehabbing?
We're not rehabbing any manholes as portions of this. That'll be done separately, but any segments where there are what can be done known as a double shot where we go through the manhole, they'll line through the manhole, cut the top back out, but the bottom, the invert of the manhole will be lined with the CIPP at that point.
Didn't Bionomics do some manhole rehab for
They've
us?
done a lot of manhole rehab and lining work. They're the ones that did the 4036 lining work that came down 341 and back down Glendale.
And
They
had
did
an
that.
annual contract with us for
They've done several annual contracts with us for manhole rehab, so, yes.
Should we talk to them about maybe what kind of price they'd give while they're on this
We
for
could,
rehabbing some manholes?
we could
Or
discuss
might
that
be
with them.
about
That's,
a
I mean, obviously, that's a different crew of theirs that does that, but we could ask them on that, yes, sir.
So these lines run through primarily the downtown area?
You know where it is.
I know where it's at,
Yeah, that makes it easy.
What's the interest rate on the GFA loan?
2.38%.
So how much money we'll have left over?
About $2 million probably by the time we get
We
done.
can find someplace to spend that, can't
Sure,
we? I mean, in Academy Creek,
we certainly could if GFA will allow us to do it.
they will, because it was Academy Creek, wasn't it? Academy Creek and sewer rehab,
But
right?
yes, that's what it was for. We did close out the Academy. We did send the final completion notice on Academy Creek, but we can discuss that with.
They don't want to take it back.
This is the one with the low interest rate, right?
And we can certainly use our local match on a UV system and a pump station. At least for the equipment we bought.
No, the map's not on the website. Oh, yeah, it is. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, it is on the advertisement. Good call.
I use y'all's website all the time.
I don't ever go on our website, so.
Quicker to get there that way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
I don't intend to not.
It's easier for the public and easier for them, easier for
I
them.
may be working harder, not smarter.
Fantastic procurement division we have.
See, that's right. It's called,
That's 3 maps to mix it.
All right, so everything in pink.
Now, what about house services? What are we doing at house services?
We line through the way it works is you line through the service, and as it does, it dimples out, and then they come back from the inside and cut the circle out of for the lateral. We don't line
So
up
we
in-
notify the people that's
Yes.
happening.
Yes. So everything in pink. Well, a couple of these lines got removed as part of the project because as we did further inspection, there's like 4 lines that got taken off this project. But essentially everything in pink is going to be lined. So if you look at the bulk of it is right through here, and that is essentially from Mansfield to G Street. So, I mean, there's some more lines, but it's going to be in the, as expected, the older portions of the system.
so you went through with the camera and determined where the priorities were, is that correct?
Yes, every line in this basin was inspected by our crews, and we reviewed every video, and every video got a score of 1 to 5.
Okay.
And then we prioritized, start with 5, go down to the 4s, until we got through them, and which ones were trenchlessly able and which ones were not.
Are we digging and replacing some?
Some of them will have to be dug and replaced, or say this one right here, we're gonna have to go in and cut in a manhole, 2 manholes, so it can be lined, because they can't make the bend.
Are we pipe bursting any?
No.
How far to the north does it go?
Furthest north is right here at McIntyre Court, so K Street.
And the thing is, of course, this is all CIPP primarily, right?
It's all CIPP.
It is, so we don't have to dig up the streets.
We do not have to dig up the streets on these, yes, sir.
Okay.
If you will notice, little history here. These lines, none of these have to be redone because those all got replaced about 6 years ago.
We're not gonna name the name of the
We're not going to
project.
talk about the project,
Good old
That's the one that took
Mansfield
it, that's
Street.
Mansfield,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
that's the one.
Um,
So all the lines coming off of it apparently are in need of rehab, but that one, those are in
That
good
one
shape.
works. That one works.
That road is fantastic.
Yeah.
Station's really helpful.
So typically, the way the contractor has indicated they intend to do this job, they will not be bringing in bypass pumps for the vast majority of these lines. They will be plugging and pumping into trucks, big tanker trucks, and bypassing it that way rather than setting up full bypass pumps.
Even
don't-
by the courthouse?
We don't get into means and methods on how they do this, and they have done that successfully. They did that out there on the one underneath the interstate.
What are they gonna do with the tanker truck? Go to the academy and dump it?
Mhm. Or down that Mex Mountain manhole down, they can dump it there, so it's just a loop process.
And we charge them for dumping.
We do, however, you say that, we do not charge them for dumping. They do pay for the water, because the way they'll do this is they have to boil water and they fill these with water. They get a hydrant meter and they do pay for the water they use.
Okay, well,
Mr. Broza, I think I'm excited about this project from a city standpoint, obviously. I would encourage us to potentially get you on the agenda or one of your staff
Sure.
on the agenda to share this, upcoming project, and once we have a little closer idea on timeline and things like that.
Certainly, so that, we've got some smaller maps that give you a little more information that we only did half and half, but the big map is, certainly shows you the scale.
who's the happiest employee in the city in terms of repairs in this area?
Probably Joe Humphrey. He's the guy that goes through all these videos, and when you go through the videos every single day, you like to see them rehabbed when you point them out that they need to be rehabbed. So he's probably the most
Yeah.
excited about it. But
And of course, this is gonna obviously cut down significantly on our number of line breaks and maintenance. and
main
things like
line
that.
breaks, I&I. It won't eliminate I&I by any stretch. It should put a dent in our I&I.
Okay.
The estimates from the master plan is this basin contribute in rain events, under a normal rain event, probably 500,000 gallons of additional flow to our system.
Right.
So now, obviously, we don't expect to get 500,000 gallons a day of flow out by doing this, but it should put a, decent chunk into it.
So,
And those are all estimates, so.
How much is that from water going in manhole covers?
probably a
I
lot.
suspect more of it is probably going in cleanouts that get removed than it goes into actual manhole covers. Some of it, obviously, with the pick holes on manholes, they can go through there. Some of it, this is one of the, I think I've told you before, there's a section of clay pipe that has 43 joints in it, and in the video, all 43 joints are leaking.
Wow.
So that one will have a significant impact on I&I in that area when that gets lined through.
For Lance and Dave's information, people use clean out sometime for yard drainage.
You're not supposed to do, and if we find
Right.
out about it, we'll go put a clean out cap on there for you,
Yeah.
but it does happen.
Are there any other questions, comments?
I mean, I will say, there's 2 lines on here that are in Gloucester. Those will obviously require some rerouting of traffic, and these are 24-hour cure time, so it's not like we can just do it in the middle of the night. So
They're in the middle of the road?
they're in the middle of Gloucester Street, yes, sir. You might notice this building right here.
Do you ever sit down and have like a post-award briefing with all the contractors?
The people that were not selected,
Right.
we've done, if they request to review the bids, we've done that with them, but as far as having a group briefing, we do not. But upon request, if they want to talk about their bid, we do.
Historically, we've had people from engineering take us up on that more so than construction.
We actually,
Engineers always want to understand why they get that.
but this is if you look at the bid tab,
Well, I'm kind of curious from the other way around, because if you look at the line items in some of their proposals, why are the companies so far apart with some of the specific lines?
Right.
And I'm just kind of curious, did they make a mistake, or did we word something wrong, or? And
Well-
it's just for future reference, not for,
yeah, I think what it is, and some people look at this going, okay, worst case scenario, if it's a 24-inch line, all those per segment options, I'm gonna price them as they're all gonna have to be that 24-inch size. And some people realize there's only a handful of 24-inch line. The overwhelming majority of what's gonna have to be done is gonna have to be done on 12-inch lines, so they price it as a 12-inch line. But the way it's on the bid tab is 12-inch or greater. So some people will price it as 12-inch, and some people will price it as 24-inch, and that can impact whether they get the bid or not.
Of course, if you look at the mobilization's a big change on a lot of these cities.
Mobilization's a major difference, and with that being said, these line items come directly from the NASCO standards. So the specs, the line items, these all come from the the CIPP, essentially national organization standards for how this work is bid out.
But the staff, when they're evaluating the bids, should look to make sure there's not somebody really unbalanced that would affect the bid. Like if they had 0 for mobilization, somebody else had something that they might not need, mobilization they'll need. That
Right.
sometimes contractors do that. They see we got too big a quantity we're not gonna have, so they'll put a high number there, so they make more money, or a low number.
Now, we have no requirements that if we want to expand their work to do the manholes.
We'd
and
have to
we-
bring a change order to y'all to do that, like there, because there's not a current line item price in the bid, so we'd have to negotiate with them on that, and we would bring that back to y'all, but that would be a completely separate crew that would do that for them, so it's not like that's gonna slow down work, they're gonna bring additional resources in to do that either way.
Okay, but you have no regulations that do not allow that.
Well, this is GFA funded.
GFA, so we'd have to confirm with GFA, it would have to be, had to make sure we checked all those boxes.
Well, and we had a sewer rehab, we were rehabbing manholes on an annual basis
Yes.
for 3 or 4 years. Have we stopped doing that?
We did not do any last year, but there is a new list for next year.
And we
Start
were
July 1.
doing like 100 manholes a year, right?
Yeah, we're doing 50 to 100 manholes a year, yes, sir.
We were putting that out. The bids on an
And
annual basis.
Bionomics has gotten that contract by happenstance every time we've bid it out, so.
I'm just kind of wondering that if we already have a contract vehicle in place and we have work that needs to be done and we are already happy with the contractor and there's no rules that don't allow us to expand that contract, then by all means,
Yeah, I
why
think
wouldn't we do
I will say
anything?
a little bit of how the sausage is made. We got bit on a previous CIPP contract, including manhole rehab in there because that contractor did not do manhole rehab, so they subbed that work out, and that did not go well. So that's why we have, since that point, separated them out. Now, we know Bionomics is fully capable of doing both of these type works, but we didn't want to get back in that same situation.
Maybe we want to address those manholes in this,
That may be something we do. Like I said, it's just that last time it did not go well.
because we got the additional G for money, we want to spend it, we don't want to.
Well, I was just thinking we might could use that to pay the overage on the UV system. If GFA will allow that. I mean, that went through, that has
It
federal
will.
purchasing stuff on it, so we gotta talk to GFA, but that seems like something that might be doable.
But it is sewer related directly, right?
Mhm.
So.
Oh, yeah, that's, absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, there's no
Both
question
of them
about
are
that.
related to the,
To the
Sewer
cabin free,
rehab?
right.
and,
That would be, yeah.
okay, we have no more questions. All in favor?
We'll say, once
There's
this
3
work is
nothing.
done, we'll bring some pictures back to you. We do the pre and post inspections, so we can show you before and afters from the exact same location. Always very helpful.
And I think it would be a really great idea to give a presentation to the city for this, because, I mean, it's really a critical thing, particularly in.
It is. Big
Todd,
time.
next month in your presentation of projects, put some of the bad pictures of this work in there so we can see, okay?
Yes,
I got you some best of shots, don't worry.
yeah. The horror shots.
In case you're wondering, I'm the project manager on this one, so I did watch all of these videos. That is a tedious task.
Sure, that's true.
And it always seems like too, these procurements always have the most questions,
Yes.
the most detail about specific segments. So when y'all were asking the question about the detailed bid, there are definitely some of these people that are looking at every section and placing their numbers accordingly.
The one advantage now, we've talked about project cost being all over the place. We continue to get consistent project costs on CIPP work.
Yeah.
I'm not 100% sure why that business has not seemingly been as impacted, but we do get more bids, which you see 5 bids on this work, and we actually had 2 bids that showed up late, so we were gonna get 7 bids on this work, and we still get consistent pricing on it, so this is still a good value for us.
It was
I mean,
because there's no electrical,
no electrical, they don't have to sub anything out.
yeah, and there's no supply chain issues.
And so they, but to rehab 5 miles of pipe for $1.8 million is a good deal. We installed 5 miles of pipe on the North Mainland for over $5 million, so.
Okay, next item is contract award Brunswick Villa area sewer expansion, Mr. Williams.
Whoop, wrong one. All right, Brunswick Villa, if you're familiar with the neighborhood, or let me get there. Where am I at, Todd? There. There. No, that's T Street. That ain't where I'm at. Yeah. There we go. I was looking for a force main. So this area here, you can see there are no gravity sewer lines in this area. If I can zoom in here for you,
And where's the college?
right here.
Okay.
So there are no gravity sewer lines serving these lots. Now, we don't have them all listed on here. You can see some of these little red icons. Those are septic tanks. So we obviously don't
Is
have.
that in Brunswick?
This is in the county. This is not in the city limits.
Okay.
And so technically, all of these lots have septic tanks, but some of these houses probably predated the records the Department of Public Health had on septic tanks. So that's why you don't see all the septic tanks listed. But this area here is a prime candidate for our infill expansion that we have been doing. This is just across the street from the ARCO area where we're working now. And this can all be supplied by gravity sewer installation. There is one section of water main which will be upsized as a portion of this, but the bulk of this work is sewer lines. 219 new parcels will be brought access to the sewer, which they can tie on when they need the service at that point. We do have people that are that have asked when this will be available because they are very interested in tying on. We had 3 bids submitted on Tuesday, March 26th. Low bid is from Southeast Pipe Survey in the amount of $4,658,360.50. There was a bid alternate. If we scroll down here, there was a bid alternate to remove and replace all the asphalt in lieu of milling just the areas we were working in and replacing with asphalt. That was a deductive alternate by the time we did it. This is just a replace the items above number. So we are recommending accepting that. That will be a deduction of $113,300 off that base bid price, bringing the total contract value to $4,545,060.50. Our engineer of record, Kimley Horn, provided a bid tab and a recommendation to award this to Southeast Pipe, including the alternate for that value. This was within 1% of the engineer's opinion of probable cost completed at time of advertisement. So this does exceed the amount of available project funding by $2.3 million, and this will be funded from uncommitted funds in the capital improvement fee reserves. And I will tell you that if this is awarded, there will be extremely limited uncommitted funds in the capital improvement fee reserve remaining, but there are sufficient funds to cover this. And we are collecting more capital improvement fees monthly as building continues to ongo. So our recommendation is we do award a contract to Southeast Pipe Survey in the amount of $4,545,060.50.
Can I have a motion?
I move that the Facilities Committee recommend awarding a contract for the construction of the Brunswick Villa Area Sewer Extension Project to Southeast Pipe Survey in the amount of $4,540,060.50.
I'll second the motion.
One thing I will point out, to Commissioner Ford's point on the last question about line items being unbalanced, I'll draw your attention to the removal and replacement of pavement section. Between the first and second bidder on the project, there was a $1.4 million swing in paving cost on this project.
Crazy.
So
Just don't know.
you look at all the other line items, they're much closer in play, but when one paving, and that is something we see a continuous amount of wide-ranging paving costs. So that's another reason the last project, since we're not having to do paving, is probably not seeing the swings in pricing because we don't do paving on this work. But
Now, why would you get a multi-million-dollar project? Do you really care about 50 cents?
I do not, sir. I
Isn't that
have
amazing?
often
I was looking at that
questioned.
too.
I have often questioned contractors why they go down to the penny. But I suppose it takes 100 of them to get to $1. So if you can get 50 of them, that's a good start.
You could round up at Harris Teeter, but
Yeah.
you can't here.
Have you guys, since this is like an expansion project,
Mhm.
have you done a business case on this?
Yes.
Have you actually done the evaluation?
Yes.
That if all the people were to connect, or even percentages of people were connect, what timeline are we looking at recouping the money that's spent for this?
If everybody connects, which is not going to happen, but if everybody connects, it's a 20-year payback. 19 point something. It's a 20-year payback if everybody connects.
Is this area served by like a homeowners association, or these are all individual houses?
Pretty sure these are all individual houses out there. Pretty sure they're all individual houses. This would have been workforce housing that would have been built likely for the mill in the 60s. So it's likely no HOA out there. I don't know for sure. But there would be there is what's it called, Commissioner Saby? The Neighborhood Planning Associations that do cover this.
Yep.
That tri-area meeting would cover Brunswick Villa, but there's no HOA that I'm aware of.
Correct.
What are the lot sizes?
Yeah, these are quarter acres,
Quarter acre.
maybe a third of an acre. They would be substandard for septic installation today.
And we know there's been failing septic tanks in that area.
Yes.
Well, you get failing septic tanks across the county.
Can you go back to the map real quick?
Certainly.
So with this expansion, will allow us to serve the commercial properties there that are on?
These properties right here, yes.
Okay,
Now, these properties are all owned by one entity, and so they are all currently served. But all of these commercial properties in here, yes, are part of this contract. We are working with Glynn County. We are trying to get it on there. I will say, there may be another savings opportunity, but it has not been coordinated to the point that this is a possibility yet. There are two street, or at least one or two sections of street in here that are on the county's LMIG list for paving, that we are trying to coordinate our contractor schedules with their paving contractor schedules, so that, not just for money savings, but so there's no reason for the contractor to do the work twice. So if we can get in and get those lines installed and rebuild the base, and then they can come in with their paving contractor and do those sections, that way the neighborhood's only disturbed one time.
yeah, I do know that there's some discussion about city annexation in this property, or this section of the county, and also I've had meetings about discussions about the commercial expansion on those lots there. There's a lot of empty space and some potential
So,
new development there.
yeah, so what we've been talking about for the last several years are these areas that were skipped over the years for whatever reason. Most of them are just outside the city limits that are part of the county. And so we have done ARCO. This project would do Brunswick Villa. And then we talked at the last meeting about providing services in between these railroad track areas. And we have a project under design now to do sewer in this community road area. So we are following that corridor and trying to get those customer service in there because there's sufficient density to make it available for sewer at this time.
But there is no requirement as of this point that once the sewer line goes in, nobody has a requirement to tie in.
Yes and no. It does say, according to the Glynn County ordinance, that once public water and sewer is available, you have to be tied on within 90 days. That has very rarely ever been enforced.
I'm not sure. Is that a true statement?
Yes. That has very rarely been enforced in the 6 years I've been here.
And we've never waived tap fees to encourage people to hook up.
We do
We can't-
finance tap fees for existing structures, but we haven't waived tap fees.
Charlie, we can't.
We can't do it
waive tap
according to
fees.
Charlie.
We even give them reduced tap.
Right. We have. We've been in extensive conversations with, was it DNR or EPD, somebody at state level, about potentially providing grant funding to tie houses on.
To get
Haven't
rid of
been
the
awarded
septic.
anything yet. It's not a CDBG, but it's a CDBG type program that I met somebody at a conference, and they have funds that, at that time, she said they did not ever have enough applicants to give the money away. We talked about the ARCO project and trying to see if we can make that come together.
You know, this is in the county, and it could be, the county gets CDBG funds too.
Yes, sir.
They can kind of pick and choose what they want to use them for.
Yes, they can. Yes, sir.
So we need to encourage them when we do this.
We have.
We need to do it again, but I mean, we just need to keep on top of it.
Every year, would they
Same
send
thing
out?
with- Same thing with the city of Brunswick, talk to them and see.
Yeah, every year the city and the county both send out basically a call for projects for CDBG.
Yeah.
We submit projects as we see benefit to the community for that. We submitted the ARCO project, not for funding for the lines, but for funding for connections, and we'll submit this project for the same situation. My understanding is they can only pick 3 projects, and we have so far not made the top 3.
How much would it cost, say, an individual homeowner to connect to the sewer line once they're installed?
The connection fee, and then, I don't want to speak for plumbers, but I'm going to say they could probably get these lines tied in for somewhere in the $1,500 range for their side, so that'd put us at about $4,000 a connection. between connection fees, startup fees, you know, account startup fees, the whole nine. So I'm gonna guess 3,000 to 4,000 per connection. And, you know,
We
if,
have to pay that on top of the tap fee.
no, that includes the tap fee. Because they already got water, so they're just paying the sewer tap.
So when you put the sewer line, when you actually put the sewer line in the road, you're gonna put laterals into the.
We're gonna stub to the right of way on every lot. So they don't have to go back and cut the new pipe. So they'll stub to the lot, and then when they want to tie on, they just disconnect their septic and reroute into our line at that point.
Okay.
There'll be a lower clean out installed at every one of them. So there'll be a lower clean out, so it'll be real easy to find.
So is the Arco place where you're doing that,
Mm-hmm.
is that finished?
No, we're about 60% done with that job.
Have you gotten any perception of the number of people who are interested in tying into?
We have 6 customers tied on so far.
Out of how many?
How many are available so far, Todd?
Well, it's not finished for a lot of them.
Not finished for a lot of them, yeah. Maybe 150 or so that currently have access right now, but 6 have already tied on.
I assume they probably had failing septic
They
tanks.
likely already had failing septic tanks, yes.
Okay, so if you take that and equate that percentage,
I understand, yes, sir.
see where I'm going with this?
Yes, sir.
And so can you answer my next to next question? Right, with the typical percentages of people who are gonna join this, what's the payback period?
It doesn't. It'll never happen. If the percentages from ARCO continue, this project will never pay for itself. We will get connection fees along the way, but by the time enough people connect to pay off the loan, we'll be having to rehab the lines. But we're in the business of providing water and sewer service to the citizens of Glynn County.
Well, I absolutely agree with that, but there's no place that we can go connect and survey and do whatever before and get a better payback condition than just arbitrarily installing sewer lines and hope people, you build it and they will come.
Tell us about the survey we did for those.
We surveyed multiple areas prior to beginning in ARCO. ARCO, we got about a 50% interest rate back on ARCO. Some of the other ones were lower than 30%.
Tell them where they were.
It was ARCO, sections of Old Jessup, and then Ellis Point, Anderson Landing area. Those are 3 major areas that we were looking at. And Community Road, we did not do a survey. We've had contact from multiple commercial property owners out in Community Road that were interested in tying on. And we had contact from multiple homeowners out here once we started the ARCO project wanting to tie on to sewer. So we did not survey this area per se. But here's the thing, at the end of the day, if your septic tank is working, most people aren't going to want to go to the expense of tying on to sewer when you have a functioning septic tank. When your tank fails, you do at that point have to apply for a permit to redo your tank. At that point, you will be required to tie on.
Well, you know, I understand that, but back when I was a commissioner before, we went out and surveyed Marshes and McKay in the Bell Point area, and we actually contacted the homeowners association and got their involvement and everything. And the problem that it turns into is it just failed. You could not get enough people to have any interest in connecting the sewer to make it worthwhile. So we never did the project. Right? I'm just not sure that, I don't know how to recommend that if we really don't think we're gonna get enough people that want to tie in to make this money back, how is this not wasting money?
That's a good point, but we have the entire county. The county, when they put in when they were in the water and sewer business, they only extended sewer to the commercial areas, basically.
That's correct.
Not
Around
in- not in
it's essentially
community.
around the interstate exits.
So, that's what we addressed, and so these houses have been there a long time. A lot of people in the county that don't have sewer, and there's only water only. So that's something we have to decide going forward if we want to
Like I said,
try to pursue this. We hope that everybody will tie on one of these days.
they will all tie on eventually when their tank fails because they'll have to. But some people that don't have failing tanks know their tank's going to fail soon and they're going to try to get out ahead of it. like I said, the ordinance does say that within 90 days, we can require people to tie on if they're within 500 foot of a water or sewer line. That has not been enforced historically because there are literally hundreds of properties that would apply to.
But if we could waive the tap fees, it'd be a lot more likely to
That
have
would be.
more.
That would, and I don't
Be a game
understand
changer.
why we can't get the county involved before we do this to say, look, guys, we're trying to do this for all of Glynn County. You kinda need to help us here.
On the septic tank side,
Well, putting the sewer in, I mean, we'll put the sewer in, but possibly get their help for tapping or making it a requirement.
I mean, like I said, on the CDBG side, Commissioner Booker with the county has been a tremendous opponent of using CDBG funds to help tie on customers out there. He brings that up consistently with me. And we have submitted paperwork through the county process that we have not made the top 3 project list for the last several years, and that's why we're looking at these grants through the DNR. And that's a annual program, so that if, it's one of those things that if we can potentially get that 1 year, we may be in a situation where we can get that allotment going forward if nobody is actually applying for it is non-point source pollution grant money. And septic tanks are non-point source pollution, so we think it will work, and it's a cap, the current cap is $400,000 per year per project, but $400,000 could potentially tie on 100 houses out there.
Right.
I mean, that's not insignificant money by any stretch of the imagination.
Is Arco lower elevation than Brunswick-Glynn?
Todd, you know? I'm assuming it's similar.
It's very
Okay.
similar. It's kind of on that ridge of the central.
But we need to look at
Yeah,
lower
I think we'll
area,
check that.
lower elevation areas have more
Might
problems.
have contours.
Do I have contours? Oh, I do have contours, hang on. See what the 1-footers say.
Hopefully it doesn't lock.
Yeah.
You're gonna make it mad, Todd. You're gonna make it mad. All right, so that's 15 to 18 feet, and Arco is 13 to 18 feet. So Arco in the south end's a little bit lower, but not appreciably.
I have a question on our estimate from our
Mhm.
engineer. He shows the contingency fund of 25%. How do the contractors approach that? Do they
I
just?
think contractors build their contingency into their line items.
I was gonna say, I mean, they're just looking at they're expecting to get the full amount.
Yes.
It's not really a contingency in their minds?
Now, if you do a design-build project,
Okay,
an alternative delivery, there can be contingency funds built in there. And so that's one of the advantages of doing some projects that way. You can do that on some hard bids, but they're not typically done that way, where you can say, okay, I know this is what it's gonna cost me. Here's some unforeseens. Rather than me billing you for all these unforeseens, I'm gonna set aside $1 million for contingency money, and then you use it accordingly, so.
Let me ask another question. Out of the number of houses that are there, what would it cost for all the tap fees to be paid?
How many houses we're serving?
219 properties. I don't know how many of those are built, but 219 properties. Sorry, I can usually do math in my head, but not that
Say
number.
200 times 4,500.
No, it's 219 times $1,800 for the sewer taps. It's $394,000 for the sewer taps.
Which we can cover in the $400,000.
Theoretically,
grant.
could be covered with a $400,000 grant.
that's right, certainly could.
You know, then my next thought would be is, okay, in your business case for the payback, were you including tap fees? What happens if you don't include the tap fees? Would it be worthwhile, let me rephrase that question. Would it possibly be worthwhile if we were to include waiving the tap fees, making them part of the project fees, provided the county forced the requirement to make them connect?
And would
We
have
would
the
get
co-
faster
would
we would get faster uptake on tying in if we paid the capital fees with our money, so to speak. Although we'd have to confirm with Charlie, we could not pay capital fees with capital fees. So we'd have to use another source of funding to do that. But if we paid them and required them to tie in, they would still be responsible on the homeowner side to run the lateral from their house to the right of way to tie in. If we did that, then of course you would then have 200, let's say, houses that would tie on that would pay a monthly sewer bill. That That would make the payback substantially quicker than waiting on people to pay capital improvement fees, because that is a barrier for, particularly for in areas of low socioeconomics, that can be a barrier to entry.
For the individual service lines, CDBG funds can be used for those.
I understand, yes, sir.
We can make sure they're lead-free pipes too, all the way to the house.
That's right. That's right.
Now, these people are on potable water, or are they?
Yes, well, I think there may be a couple of people on wells out there, but the bulk of these folks are on our water system. Yes, sir.
While they own wells.
They were out there in the 40s and 50s and still haven't ever tied on. Again, what my point before, we have people, not just in this area, all throughout Glynn County, that are on well and septic because their house was built before it was available. According to the ordinance, once it's available, we have the authority to tell you, you have 90 days to disconnect your well and septic and tie on to us. If we did that, that is going to impact hundreds of properties in Glynn County, and that's going to be chaos.
We need 3 more lawyers
Yes.
working for us.
Yes. It'd be absolute chaos.
What's the county health people say about this?
About, they have failed septic tanks, obviously. They would rather them get on our system if it's available. But they don't, I think they basically do, they do septic inspections off of complaint type things. They're not out there checking septic tanks to see if they're functioning.
Any other questions? We got a motion and a second. All in favor?
I can't go in favor of this.
That's 2-0.
Opposed?
Opposed?
One opposed.
2 to 1, okay.
Next item is pump station 4105 pump purchase.
Yes, sir. Pump Station 4105 is on Winstead Drive off of Kate Road in the North Mainland District. You may recall at the last meeting, we were awarded a contract to replace the existing force main on this station. However, the pumps, we have one pump that is out at the shop right now, and the cost to rehab the pump exceeds the cost to buy a new pump. And the other pump is on its last legs as well. There is a bypass pump there, so don't be concerned about it failing immediately. However, we do need to get new pumps in the station, so we went and got pricing to do a in-kind replacement from Xylem for flight pumps, 224 horsepower flight pumps, and the cost to replace is $36,856. It was $19,000 to rehab one pump. So we're requesting to buy 2 of these pumps. At the end of the force main project, these pumps will no longer be sufficient to handle the required flow requirements. However, they can be relocated to Pump Station 4109 on Glencoe Parkway. They're the same pumps that are there, and those pumps are also 20 years old and would be a welcome replacement. So just because we're putting them in that one pump station does not mean that they can't be used elsewhere when that project work is completed. So the request is to buy 2 pumps from Xylem Water Solutions for $36,856.40.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend approval of purchase of 2 flight submersible pumps for Pump Station 4105 from Xylem Water Solutions USA, Inc., the amount of $36,856.40.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Any questions? Andrew, can you pull up the map showing us where 4105 is and the relocation of the force main, and explain again how these pumps are going to be used?
All right, 4105 is located right here. This is Winstead Drive, off of Kate Road.
Then 4107 feeds that, right?
4107 is upstream, on Kate Road. So that currently pumps down, turns down Haltala, goes underneath the interstate, and daylights here on Old Jessup, very near Rich Products. What is going to occur is a new force main will be installed adjacent to this one, come underneath the railroad tracks at Haltala, and terminate here on Crispin Boulevard. That will significantly reduce the head on these pumps because the force main size will change, as far as diameter will get larger, and the length will drastically change. We do have multiple large developments that are funding the increased force main, and so once that is done, it doesn't make any sense to put the bigger pumps in now because they're not going to get any benefit through the old force main really. So Once that is installed, we'll replace the pumps in this station, and 4109 is out here by the Air National Guard. Is that 4109? Yeah, so that's the one out here by the Air National Guard on Glencoe Parkway. And they'll be relocated there. Those pumps are 20 years old and are due for replacement as well. They're still functioning, but if we can proactively replace them, that would be a nice start for us.
So we're replacing 4105 pumps with these.
Replacing 4105 right now with these pumps. Once the force main's done, and we can get,
4105 has 3 pumps, right?
that's 2. They're duplex. It has a bypass pump, but it's a duplex with a bypass pump. So once the new force main's installed, we've got some station work to do on that project that will increase the electrical sizing so we can bring in bigger pumps to get the flow rate we need through the new force main. At that point, we'll relocate them to 4109.
I thought a new force main was going to lower the pumping, increase the pumping from that pump station.
It is going to increase. It's not going to increase it enough without doing work at the station.
4107 still pumps to 4105.
That's correct, yes, sir.
Could it tie into that force main where we wouldn't have to pump it twice?
You'd have to extend the force main a pretty good bit to do that.
Tying the force main from 4107, just connect it to the force main at the pump station, 4105.
We can take a look at that, yes, sir. Yes, so 4107 is here on Perry, just across Perry Lane. So currently that force main terminates right here at Perry Lane. So instead of replacing just that, you'd be putting in from here all the way down to here. So, I mean, it'd be more pipe, but it's doable.
And what's the intersection that's by?
4105 or 4107?
4105.
Winstead Drive and Cape Road.
This is one that never got finished because of
Mm-hmm.
the issue, right?
That's correct. So you've got that feed upstream of this station, either directly to this station or to upstream stations. You've got the new development that's going on at Vintage Brunswick. You've got Saddlebrook Phase 2, which is out here. And you've got the Bergen Woods development, which is right here.
What's the status of that development?
So waiting on asphalt, last thing I saw.
So it's almost finished.
Been waiting on asphalt for a while. My understanding is also changed owners at this point.
Because that was one of those unsolicited proposals.
They did pay their connection fees. They've already paid all the connection fees for that project. So from our perspective, they put asphalt down, we're ready to close the project out on their private side because we just got to get asphalt down so we can confirm they don't cover up manholes or valves or anything like that. So it's an open project for our inspectors to keep an eye on, but hasn't been much progress out there recently.
Any other questions?
No.
All in favor indicate by raising your right hand. Motion carries 3-0. Next item is Academy Creek influent pump bases repair, Mr. Burris.
Yes, sir. At the Academy Creek plant, we have 4 pumps, and those pumps sit down on what are known as pump bases that are affixed to the floor. We have ordered 2 new pumps many moons ago that are allegedly supposed to be delivered the first week of May, and they cannot get here fast enough. When those pumps are installed, they slide down guide rails and then sit on these bases. When we ordered the new pumps, we went down and inspected the bases, and we found that the bases are not properly fixed to the wet well floor. They're rattling and they're a little off balance. So we got with our contractor that's at Dunbar right now, BRW Construction, and asked him what he would charge us to go in and rehab those. So he'll remove the bases, go down, grout over the floor, and put new lag bolts in and level those so that we don't end up with vibrations, because that's just going to impact your pumping capacity and the lifespan of those new pumps. So we got a quote from him to actually do all 4 bases. So we'll do 2, put the 2 new pumps in, take the other 2 out, redo those 2 at that time. He can have the 2 new ones installed prior to the first week of May if this is awarded. And the cost to do that is $49,192.
Can I have a motion?
I'll move that the Facilities Committee recommend entering into a contract with BRW Construction Group LLC to perform rehab on the influent pump bases at Academy Creek Water Pollution Control Facility in the amount of $49,192.
I'll second.
Motion is second. Any questions?
Now, they can't just go down there and drill the base out and just epoxy it back down?
No, sir, because right now, the epoxies don't typically hold up in a sewer environment very well. But what has happened is over years, the lag bolts have become, they've wallowed out from vibration, so he's got to go down and basically repair that and then re-drill through that. We could do that with epoxies, as you're saying, but we have found the epoxy's lifespan is not very good.
Are these the original pump bases?
These are the original pump bases from the early 2000s when these pumps were installed, that's correct.
They were yeoman's pumps, right?
They were Yeoman's, yes, sir.
Replaced them with Flight?
The new pumps are Flight, yes, sir. We've done that in other stations.
Flight
They'll hook up,
fits on,
yes, sir.
so
They
this
will.
was done a long time ago. The problem was a long time. Did the yeoman's pump vibrate too?
Very badly. If you've ever been down there, you used to could hear, and I'm sure you've seen this, you could see the guide rail shaking as the pump was
Yeah.
running.
So.
Those are not supposed to shake.
This is something that should have been addressed long.
This should have been addressed years ago, yes, sir. But while we got the pumps out of the hole, we can get down in there. Let's
Okay.
address it now and get it taken care of. Before we put a $80,000 pump in that hole and mess it up.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Motion carries 3-0. Next item is dedication of easements and infrastructure. Mr. Klein?
Commissioners, good afternoon. This item is dedication for Grace Crossing Phase 2B. It's on the north end of the county, and I will show you where that is. Diggers Boulevard, near Carriage Gate, and then this is the development of the remaining property within that development there. All right. Typical water and sewer dedication here, it's a little over 1,500 linear feet of water main, 8-inch water main, and fire hydrants and appurtenances, and a little under 1,500 linear feet of gravity main, manholes, and services as well. The easements over the private right-of-ways, because these are being maintained as private. And this will add 30 new single-family residential homes to our rolls. And there's record drawings attached to show you there, and there's also plat, I believe, should be included as well. First page is final plat. And the water and sewer record drawings are behind that. And so, happy to answer any questions.
Is that the final phase of this project? Is it-
No, sir, there's
Is there more?
additional, right, so there's a phase 2C that's in motion right now,
Okay.
under construction, they said pre-con for it, still rolling right through. And this, thank you for asking that question, it's kind of an example, phase 2 was one phase, originally as reviewed and permitted through Glynn County and reviewed by us. And frequently, and we're happy to do so, developers at times will need to go ahead and plat a number of lots to help continue on with the development. So they'll do that sometimes, break them into subphases, and that's what
Okay.
happened with
All
A, B, and C.
You can almost assure if there's a number and a letter, it's been broken up after the fact.
A little more paperwork, but we're happy to do it.
So they have the proper elevations for all the phases to gravity connect?
They do, yes, sir.
That's the one advantage to doing it this way. They lay the infrastructure out for the entire project and then come back and phase the platting of the lots, but everything's been considered on the infrastructure side.
Right.
Can I have
It
a
does get
motion?
confusing trying to keep them straight sometimes, but particularly when they don't use letters and they use colors.
Would somebody make a motion?
Yeah, I'll move the Facilities Committee recommend the full commission approve and accept this project with associated documentation.
I'll second.
All in favor? Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Sure, go to the discussion section, water production report, Mr. Burrows.
Yes, sir. On our water production report this month, we'll come back to the unaccounted for at the end here. But the month of March, we had about 5 million gallons a day, very close in line where we had been for February and January. On the mainland here, you will see a major jump up in the Goodyear Park well production, mostly because for the bulk of February, that well was offline due to well issues, but that has been brought back online. And we have got, as I'm sure Mr. Klein will report on the project report, the North Mainland water loops, all of those are tied in. So this is the first month where that has all occurred. And so we do see some different flow patterns there. Golden Isles 2 picking up a little bit of flow, and Brunswick-Glynn turning down a little bit with the Goodyear Park coming back on. So obviously these are not 100% balanced, but a much better job of balancing those wells across the production areas there. And that's on the mainland, very consistent where we were last year when the two lines kind of come together. You know you're being pretty consistent. On the St. Simons District for the month, 2.3 million gallons, 2.4 million gallons. We do tend to have a little bit more outdoor watering on St. Simons. However, it was a rainy month, so you didn't see a huge spike for the month of March. But everything pretty well balanced over there. Obviously, more water usage on the south end than the north end of St. Simons Island. A little less, as you see on the next graph, less water usage this time of year, this year compared to last year, because last year's first quarter was exceedingly dry. So there was a lot more outdoor water usage. And then at the South Mainland, three well system. 2 of them are functioning most of the time. The other one's just a backup well, and we're working on a project to get that brought into production. But that system is very well balanced, just shy of 300,000 gallons a day on the South Mainland area, which, as you see on the chart on the next page, does not see a lot of variability month to month. Very consistent water usage there. If you flip back to the first page, I have our unaccounted for water. As you see, we almost 99% of our meter reads were completed with the new AMI system. That does not mean that there's 1% of our system does not have AMI meters. Some of them, just for whatever reason, don't pick up, and we have to go get the reads. But these were the ones that were transmitted through our AMI system. And for the month, the unaccounted for water percentage was 11.4. I think that's probably going to be lower than what we see going forward, but sometimes that happens throughout the month. At our last meeting, and I'll report these numbers tomorrow as well, we had a customer that was requesting with our new AMI system if we could give them warning when they had a leak. And a little bit of information here provided by Ms. Roberts, who has spearheaded this efforts. We cannot tell you if you have a leak, but we can tell you if you have what is known as continuous consumption. And there are 96 15-minute intervals in a day. And if the meter experiences consumption in all 96 of those intervals, it reports a continuous consumption flag through our dashboard. If it's 7 to 13 consecutive days of continuous consumption, it's known as a warning flag. If it's 14 or more, it's known as a critical flag. Since March 29th, so what is that, a little over almost 2.5, 3 weeks, since March 29th, we have mailed 488 critical consumption letters and sent 804 text messages to accounts with critical consumption. And we have 120 letters to warning continuous consumption and 267 text messages to warning continuous consumption. Now, we have seen some progress on this. We have a couple of here as examples. This individual had a significant water usage showing on March the 12th. We contacted them, let's see, trying to find the date. Contacted them on the 29th, and on April the 5th, they were able to determine that they had a valve issue in their master bathroom, and that was completed within a week of getting the text message. So that was a success. We also have another that had continuous consumption. We contacted them on April the 8th. They had their problems corrected by April 13th. And so we have 4 or 5 that we know about that have already completed that work and replied for their leak adjustment. So we are seeing a reduction through this effort. We do have some that dispute whether they have continuous consumption or not, but we are sending those messages out and asking people with the letters that are mailed to please sign up for our text message service so we can contact them that way instead of having to send them a paper copy of a letter. So We've contacted almost 1,500 customers since March 29th about continuous consumption at their properties.
I have a question on the unaccounted water. Can you actually break that down into sections or areas?
I'm still working on that. The system gets mad at me and won't give me the data yet.
Okay,
It just gets in this endless death spiral where it just spins and then it just shuts down.
okay.
So I'm
I mean-
working on that. We've put that question in with our Neptune 360 people
Oh,
of why
yeah.
it does that.
I mean, it seems it would be useful in terms of, when you're planning
Yes.
for I&I and things like that.
It would, on the south
Leaks.
mainland, it would make sense that that report would run because there's only 1,000 or 1,200 customers it's trying to run versus, 15,000 customers on St. Simon's. It won't run either one of them. So if you select a
Okay.
group in which you make groups, so if you select a group of meters, the report just shuts down. If you run them all, it runs. But if you select a group, it shuts down.
So
You
this,
can run 30,000, but don't try to run
But
300.
try to,
so this unaccounted for is for all of the systems.
All systems, yes, sir.
And can you explain why it was 37 and now it's 11?
Why, the reason it was 37, you look at the chart on the far right, is the percentage that went through the AMI meters.
Yeah.
At that point in January of 23, only 2/3 of our meters were AMI. So as that gets brought up, as that continues to increase, that will reduce the theoretical unaccounted for water that goes through. Also, if we have months where we have major main breaks or something, you're gonna have a higher unaccounted for
Right,
water.
yeah.
'Cause
But that's not indicating that old meters were that inaccurate, though.
some of them were, not all of them, but some of them very much were
I mean, some
inaccurate.
people were not metered.
Some people had a meter that was not transmitting, they were getting minimum bills every month, yes, sir.
and the unaccounted, like if we're doing flushing and stuff, that's not considered in this.
When we do the water audit, that is all taken into account, but as far as this monthly report, no,
Right.
that is not taking all
Right,
that into
that's not,
account.
okay.
When you notify these people and they ignore it, does that mean that we just, okay, you're not getting a leakage adjustment?
That has been discussed. That has been discussed, and there's pros.
I appreciate your position.
There's pros and cons to that approach. We are discussing with them, if you file for a leak adjustment, that at that point, part of the leak adjustment process is you will be required to give us your contact information so that we can reach out to you so you don't have a leak for 3 months next time. But to your point, yes, if we have told you you have a leak or you have continuous consumption, you do not have a leak, you have continuous consumption and you have ignored it despite our warnings, there is an argument that you should not be granted an adjustment for that. However, that has not been put into practice yet. Because in certain situations, people are ignoring their continuous consumption because the cost to fix the continuous consumption exceeds what the burden on their monthly bill is.
Right, I
And so-
understand that.
We could notify somebody, you got a leak, maybe a continuous consumption, you got a toilet flapper, and your bills went up $30 a month, and then you do have a main break out in the front of your yard, or a service line break in the front of your yard, and your bill skyrockets all of a sudden. Just because we notified you and you ignored your toilet flapper doesn't necessarily mean that you wouldn't be eligible for a leak adjustment at that point.
The flapper that costs less than $10?
Yeah, $4 flat, I don't know, I hadn't bought one recently, inflation and all, but it used to be a $4 flapper.
But is there a gallon limit on the notification? So if you're leaking a gallon a day, that's not gonna do it.
Not gonna, well, no, yeah, it will. If there's usage in every 15-minute box, you use a gallon every 15 minutes in those intervals, you will get notified.
Mr. Burke, you use a tenth of a gallon every one of those.
Mhm.
Thanks.
'Cause the theory is that
Dave,
there
you
shouldn't
can have them
always
send
be,
you
there should be
They
continuous
can tell you what
consumption
you're
in
running
any
through your house
contract.
right now.
Yeah, so
You need to have, your,
the running joke is I
Lauren,
can
she
tell
can
when
show
you
you
get up
what
in the
you-
middle of the night and have to go to the restroom, because I know you use 2 gallons of water because the toilet flushed.
if you can print out, like at Commissioner Ford's house,
Yeah.
you can print out his flow, so you can see it.
I don't want to
Same
see
it
it.
We got you, Commissioner Sadie, don't worry. I'll have that to you by the end of the day.
And that cooking out, you
I
could
can
print
tell you right
ours
now,
out.
at 2 o'clock in the morning.
Now, and we do send out letters. Some people say commercial enterprises know they have continuous consumption.
Right.
A hotel is going to have usage all night long if they've got 100 rooms. And so we notify them they have continuous consumption, but they're not going to do anything about it because they know they have continuous consumption. So some of these, you're always going to have some accounts that show up with continuous consumption. Technically, we didn't send a letter to ourselves, but the wastewater plants that have water connections, all three of them do, they have continuous consumption at them because it's used in different locations throughout the plant.
Right.
So certain continuous consumption, you're never going to eliminate.
So how often, what did you say again? How often does it do it?
You get a warning flag if it has been 7 to 13 consecutive days of you having water consumption in all 96 of the 15-minute intervals throughout the day. You're critical if you're over 14 days. And the overwhelming majority of them are critical. In theory, if we can knock the critical ones down, we'll be able to catch a lot more of them in the warning stages instead of waiting till they get to the critical stage. But the day these meters went online, we had 900 to 1,000 customers that showed up as continuous
I remember
consumption.
that, yeah. So if once we send the one, do we continue to send letters out, or we
We
just
send one letter.
Just the one, okay, right. So as long as they've been warned.
Well, I would almost view it as, let's go for strike 3. You know, you send one letter out after what, 14 days?
Mm-hmm.
After another week, send out another letter, that's strike 2. After another week, if they're not addressing it, well, you're not available for leakage adjustment. You know, come on, fix it, guys. But you gotta, if it's only 1 gallon, trying to sit there and trace a trickle of flapper on the
That some of
toilet,
that can
it's
happen,
like,
absolutely.
geez, you can go walk around and listen and you can't hear it.
And the
Or
other
underground
the one-
irrigation or.
Well, the one thing I will say
Right.
too, and one of the reasons me and Ms. Roberts have had extensive conversations about that policy, and one of the things I've always said is the problem is a lot of the times landlords are responsible for the property and the accounts and the customers' names. We can send them letters and they can call their landlords all day long.
Yeah.
That's true.
They don't have control over when their landlord fix that problem. That's not saying that we have a lot of very good landlords in this town that immediately jump on things. So, but there are situations where that has
Well,
happened.
we agree that the technology doesn't affect human behavior.
Yes, it does
on that
not,
level.
yes.
Okay.
It can record what happens, but it does not impact
Right,
what
there you go.
happens.
Yeah.
And we feel like that first 7 days is adequate. To me, initially, when you said that, it seemed like a long time for that first flag to go up.
Well, there may be situations, for example, if you had a pool installed where you're going to run water for 3 days, filling that pool up for the
Gotcha.
first time type thing. So there may be, under 7 days, there may be legitimate reasons you would have water usage continuously like that.
Okay.
But if you're using 1 gallon or you're using 3,000 gallons of water in a 24-hour period, then that's really critical for some.
We are also looking at, this report is not as easy to get, but Ms. Roberts is also looking at people that seem to be using 2 to 3 times the amount of water, even if it's not continuous, for people that may have misprogrammed their irrigation systems and things like that. So that's the next step
The
of this
volume is
process.
important. Yeah.
That's the next step of this. We did send one customer a notice that they had continuous consumption, and they 100% had continuous consumption. They could have fixed their continuous consumption and not seen any reduction in their bill because they were irrigating for 3 hours, 6 days a week. And from like 1 in the morning to 4 in the morning, and were not aware they were irrigating from 1 in the morning to 4 in the morning. So they could have fixed that all day long, and I hope they did, but that is not going to significantly impact their bill because the flapper on their toilet leaking is not going to change you using, that much water for irrigation purposes.
That's a good
They mow the
report.
grass
I'm
every other
looking
day.
forward to having the accurate
I don't understand.
impact on water for us pretty soon.
Yes, sir.
Let's proceed into the photographs and everything. That's the fun part.
You don't want to do the wastewater?
Well, okay, just do the wastewater.
Thank you for all the information, and I know I had spoken with Mrs. Roberts about the kind of things that they were trying, unexpected results from the new meters that we weren't, and they're tackling, I know that your department's tackling that and handling it quite well.
All right, so wastewater Academy Creek, for the month, 97% BOD and TSS removal. 7.2 million gallons leaving the facility. You see that we did have a violation for ammonia. Aeration Basin 2 was brought back online last week, and we are seeing a reduction in the ammonia as a result of that basin being brought back online. So hopefully that number will be straightened out in the very near future for you. But a little bit more rainfall for the month. I will say that rainfall total on Academy is lower because the National Weather Service rain gauge that used that was offline for like 7 days, and that happened to be the 7 days it rained. So if you look at the flows for Dunbar and
Like 4
Southport,
inches to that, yeah.
yeah, there's a major difference in the flow
Oh,
for the
you,
month.
yeah, sure.
But you can see we did have more rainfall this month than we did last year at this time. Obviously, still have some I&I issues we're trying to correct at that facility.
Right.
All right, Dunbar Creek, 3.4 million gallons for the month. You see there, compared to the last one, it said 3.5 inches of rain, 6.2 inches of rain on St. Simons for the month. But 98% removal of BOD and 99% removal of TSS with the new filters online. That plant humming along very well with the new diffusers and the new filters, producing a high-quality effluent leaving that facility.
When we do the expansion in Dunbar, what are the percentage capacity? Is that gonna drop?
It will
pretty-
drop because that's off of a 4 MGD per
Right.
day on the effluent, so if we go to 5, that will drop the
Yeah,
percentage of capacity.
look, because the numbers it looks ominous when you're at 85%, but I know
Yes.
we're in the middle of
Yes.
working on
The
that.
trigger for that, on this spreadsheet for that highlight is 80%. So that's typically, if you're at 80% of your capacity, typically want to look at trying to do something,
Right, which we are doing.
which we are doing.
Okay.
And if all goes well, we'll be completed in July, which we'll get to, as part of the project report. You do see more flow this year with the rainfall compared to last year. And at Southport, we now have the meters calibrated, so hopefully we'll have an influent number for you for April, but a little over 500,000 gallons a day going through that facility. 98% on BOD and TSS for the month, 7 inches of rain at exit 29 for the month. So, very consistent from there. That system does not have near as much I&I impact. There are I&I in the system. It's not completely dry, but not near as much impact from I&I for that system as we do in the other systems. More impact when more port usage. If the port is running well with the vehicles and washing a lot of vehicles, we see an impact on flow as a result.
Andrew, at Academy Creek, we're getting sludge, grit out of the aeration basins.
That grit has been removed from the aeration basin, yes, sir,
From what?
from one of them.
We still gotta do it from another one?
We've got to do it from AB3, yes, sir.
You got all the grit out of them, one of them?
We didn't get it all, but we got the vast majority of it out.
You got as much as you needed, you felt you needed to get out.
We got about 800 yards out.
Oh, 800 yards.
And are we bringing sludge from the other plants?
Not yet.
When will that take place?
Goal, we were working on Sarah. She's been back online a couple of weeks. We're trying to make sure she's going to stay purring down there. But the goal is to have that kicked off into this month, 1st of May.
You know, I met a couple of girls this past week, I mean, their relatives or something like that, and their names were Sarah. And I told them we had a belt press named Sarah. They didn't appreciate
They
that.
didn't appreciate that.
Why did they pick a female name?
I don't know. You ought to talk to Mr. Alvin about that one. He's the one that named her.
The sludge, so it's
Yeah.
easier to hold.
But now that Sarah seems to be doing okay, knock
Knock
on
on
wood.
wood. She's very old.
She's very old, so
You know.
trying to hang her in there. But assuming we can get that kicked off in the near future, do have some excess solids we got to get rid of at Academy to make room for additional stuff to go through that facility.
At the next meeting, if you could have an aerial and you can just show for the commissioners the process flow.
Yeah, I owe Commissioner Ford a process flow diagram that I haven't got
But
to.
if we could just have that with
Yeah.
a drone picture or something, so
Sure.
they can understand what they're talking about.
I'm being ignored, so.
You just
Right.
just because you said.
We got enough new commissioners, we need to have that down. Okay, Ty?
Okay.
All right,
We get together and figure out how we can annoy you.
moving along to the picture report. All right, Arco Area Water and Sewer Extension, that's a northbound view of activities on 6th Street between Franklin and Emmanuel. You see the trench boxes being used there and the rock box behind that. Still got some good depth to the sewer that's going in the ground. UWS is our contractor, and they're negotiating around existing storm lines. Has been one of the larger challenges out there, but they're getting it done. So right there, good progress. We're probably a little over 60% done right now. I've got an overall sheet showing the areas that are completed and the areas yet to complete. If anybody would like to see that after the meeting, didn't include that in the picture report. Next project, galvanizer replacements, in-house forces, working on that. Justin Lewis Water Distribution Division crew member up top, little 2-inch galvanized line already pulled out of Wesley Oaks. Putting a lot of effort into that subdivision on St. Simon's. Believe they've about got it licked out there. Got Michael Allen below that showing a 1-inch. You see how thin wall that pipe is, what's left of it. And good tree root wrapped around there. Found it. Some of the examples of things guys are removing, replacing with modern materials. Next project, Canal Road Water Production Facility. Construction is underway on that project there. And you'll notice if you've driven out in that area, Glynn County or Glynn County Airport Authority cleared a lot of the trees around the surrounding area. Excuse me. In preparation largely for Glynn County's traffic circle and Canal Road widening projects that are moving forward.
Will the power for that pump, that go underground once the improvements happen there?
It'll go underground on site, Commissioner. The Georgia Power is going to bring a service. Actually, that's part of the project component of it is bringing the service outside the site. So Georgia Power is responsible for all the aerial lines and everything outside the site. Drop it down underground, then go internal. It'll be underground. Good question. We're trying to do that with all of our pump stations and canal or well sites as well.
When are they gonna start construction? What's the time frame?
We're looking at
Mobilization
around
March,
June.
mobilization June the 3rd.
Yeah, approximately June, very early summer. We're looking for seeing some dirt turning out there on that site. So
And there won't be any conflict with the roundabout they're putting in there, or?
we're going to do our best. It's the good thing about it. The site is all off the roadway.
Right, yeah, I saw it, I went and drove by.
Yeah, and there's actually a good buffer between the back side of the site and where the new Harry Driggers right-of-way is going to be routed.
Mm-hmm.
So we believe so. We believe we're going to be able to stay out each other's way out there. So we are looking to Glynn County to allow us to use a little bit of extra right-of-way for as a lay-down yard adjacent to the site right there too. The next picture there is resolution of completion of the North Mainland water loops and water main extension project there. You see it's a lay-down yard that Valancourt Construction used. They leased that from the private property owner at their own cost. Cleaning that up. That's a good intersection shot there with 95 in the background, I-95 in the background. Hatala, the infamous Hatala. Finally got that loop connected and made, and Kate Road. This also shows part of the route for the 4105 force main improvements that we just spoke about a little bit earlier. It's going to come underneath these dual sets of tracks.
So we're just waiting on final walkthrough and documentation for closeout, correct?
That's correct, yes, sir. Yep. Next project is our 3 pump station, or group of 3 pump stations. 4002 is in the pictures here. That's where you're going to see a little progress going on right now. And Popco is our contractor. They're doing the structural demo, and then the demo's essentially complete. And they are putting up the new block wall in there to isolate the control panel room. See there, if you're familiar with that site downtown, got a nice mural on the backside they're taking care to preserve. And also 4001, which is just down the street, is another pump station in this group of 3. 3101 on the south end, right by our exit 29 treatment plant, is the third.
Are we increasing the capacity of 4002?
No, sir.
That's serving the area that was rehabbing, right?
We're going to increase the capacity, or it's not increasing the
We're gonna
capacity.
decrease flows.
We're going to decrease flows with the CIPP project, but no reason for capacity increase in that area.
Next sorry.
Let's go back to the galvanized line replacement.
Yes, sir.
We know how much money we've spent on that project
Mm-hmm.
and how many lines we replaced. So we could see what it cost us per line or something.
Let's see, spent to date on that project is,
Does this include our manpower cost too?
no, sir, this is just material cost. Expenditures to date is $467,000 and change, and we've replaced about 5 miles of galvanized lines with that. That does not include our employee cost.
And how large is it? We got one crew doing it?
Essentially, yes, sir.
Okay. All right. Go ahead, Todd.
All right, next project is pump station 4044 over there in front of Publix area, Walmart area, Scranton Connector. And Popco is the contractor on that project as well. Still going through submittal approval process, electrical submittal approval, and waiting for some precast structures to show up out there. We did work a little bit last meeting. We discussed a little bit of an idea that the contractor presented to us to kind of shallow up the gravity line. We're always open and receptive to good ideas, and we worked with the contractor to do that. We're going to see some system improvements operationally and also constructability-wise. So shows good cooperation between the contractor and staff.
What do you mean? The influent line to the pump station?
It was yes, sir. So on the top picture here, you see that's the existing wet well, which has basically become somewhat of an influent manhole. And then the gravity line between the existing to the new wet well. So rather than, we're able to raise that up just a little bit, not create a sump down in the this manholes area right here. So it shallowed up just a little bit.
What's a little bit?
I think we brought it up 3 feet, maybe 3 or 4 feet. Wasn't very much.
Is that gonna affect anybody upstream that possibly would wanna connect to that line and couldn't because of race?
No, sir. The influent line elevation is still the same. It's just the effluent going to the wet well, to the new wet well. It came up. So should not affect. There should be no new connections between the old wet well and the new one, so it should not affect it. That's going to be a tight spot. They're going to earn their monies on that one.
This is pump station has a long force main, right?
Extremely long, about 50 feet.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just pumps from the wet well about 50 feet into Scranton Connector.
That's a little bit of an inside joke. The chairman has asked us repeatedly to figure out how we can eliminate that pump station, and the elevations just do not work.
Yeah. To that point, though, future reroute may be the next improvement line of this. If we had to upsize a force main because the receiving gravity would be a limiting factor at that point. So if we see a lot of upstream growth and whatnot, we're probably looking at a force main reroute, which would be down Altama,
yeah.
Splitter Road there between Publix and Walmart.
And how does this project affect the shopping center there? They have their own grinder, is that correct?
It does not, there's a grinder for the bank that
Just-
will be.
Just for the bank,
The bank's grinder will be eliminated.
Right.
That was part of the agreement for them.
right, to give us the property. right.
Property. But
Right.
the shopping center is not impacted by this. They still have their own grinder system in there that probably needs some attention.
Right, just adjacent to the site, there's about in this area right here.
Right.
As Burroughs said, there's a private grinder station that that commercial area drains to. Some of the businesses drain to,
Mhm.
and so it's going to eliminate that. We're taking that out. It's going to be a pass through. Basically, it's going to gravity flow straight to the new wet well.
Right, okay,
Yeah, so they're very happy about that.
I'm sure.
They've got it held together with baling wire right now all right, here we go. Dunbar Creek, good aerial shot there. I'll let Mr. Burroughs.
Yeah, good aerial shot of, you see in the center there, the new clarifier going up. And you see on the far right there, the pile of dirt that got excavated for that new clarifier to go up. So good aerial photo, filters in the background with the structure over it. So making progress there. The remaining items to work on here are SCADA improvements, the entrance road and that clarifier, splitter box, and RAS pump. New RAS pump, so you see on the bottom them working in the RAS pumping station there to bring in the pipe work for the new RAS pumps that will be required for the new clarifier. On the next page, you can see a zoomed in shot of on the ground the clarifier being built. You can see that the floor of that clarifier has been poured, and now they are building the forms for the walls of the clarifier. That is not a tiny excavator in the background, in case you were wondering. That is a full-size excavator, but that is a big construction job we've got going on out there. And then the bottom photo is the construction of the new splitter box to divert flow to the new clarifier. So they will build that up, and there will be a box equal to the center box you see there. And then they'll bypass and cut a hole in that to allow the flow to get in there at a later date. So tricky little bypass job, but contractor has a plan on how to attack it. But it will essentially, the entire splitter box will be built, and then we'll let water to it later, so they can build everything without having to impact flow until it's needed to put flow to it.
Are the new filters and UV in operation
Yes, sir.
in the new partial flooding?
Yes, sir.
And explain to the commission where Sea Island Road, where that new access is gonna come.
Okay, Sea Island Road, if you're coming down Sea Island, once you cross the Dunbar Creek Bridge, you see Dunbar Creek in the background there. There is a gravel road there that currently has traffic barrels at the end of it right now.
If you look at the picture, you can see where that entrance, that road is.
Yes, sir. And so that will, and you can see there where that sewer line goes in the back there that Todd has.
Yeah,
So
that there, yeah.
that's where currently the main entrance comes through Glen Haven. There's a gate in Glen Haven off of Pine or Palmetto there. And so that will become the back entrance, and then once that roadway is built out, it'll be widened a little bit and definitely improved so we can bring normal traffic through there, all access to the plant other than, the random emergency situation will come through Sea Island and not have to go through the neighborhood.
And show them where the control building is, where a guest or anybody would come to. It'd be a whole lot easier
It's
than
right
having
there,
to
yeah.
wind around the entire structure too.
It is right there, so. Right there, the gate's there, you gotta go around everything, so this will be direct access. And it'll get, again, that's a very narrow, corridor through that neighborhood. We don't like having to bring trucks and equipment through that neighborhood if we don't have to, so. We'll pull out on Sea Island there. We do have an agreement with Glynn County that we will not be bringing equipment in between, 6 and 9 in the morning or 3 and 6 in the evening to avoid causing traffic issues. But if you do turn in there now, I would suggest turning your blinker on well in advance, because people do not know that road is there.
I think it looks like the Coliseum here myself.
Not enough arches.
Yeah, not enough arches, yeah, more arches.
Most people don't want to turn into that
We can
plan
do
anyway.
They don't. They just don't know that's there.
We need a roundabout there, maybe at that intersection.
Yeah.
All right. Next project to speak about here is Pump Station 4001 rehab. It's part of the group of 3 that we spoke about a little earlier. That's just POPCO doing a preliminary investigation and figuring out the bypass and plan. Going to relocate some SCADA and whatnot as part of that, panels. Next project, 3101, the third of the trio. Again, our contractor POPCO down there doing some more preliminary site planning. One thing here to point out, I don't know if you can see it here or not, but so Commissioner Saban, to your point, here's the power pole right here.
Right.
If you can see, here's our power service that drapes across,
Yeah.
one corner of our site and down to a pole internally. That service is going to come down and go underground now into our
Perfect.
site. But also, if you see the AT&T building back over here, you see their service keenly drapes right across the middle of our site. Makes it kind of tough to bring a VACCON in there and clean the wet well out. So that's also getting relocated as part of the negotiations with Georgia Power to get their service out from over the top of us. It's kind of a inconvenient situation there. Okay, Mall and Oglethorpe elevated storage tank rehabs. We are desperately trying to finish this project here. The last remaining major item is altitude valve on the Mall tank, and we're working with our contractor Tank Pro to wrap that one up. But anyway, these are good shots here. Good, College Coast of Georgia again, great advertisement for them. They worked with us to get that logo, and then on the north end of St. Simons, our Oglethorpe tank up there as well. And we haven't seen the Osprey come back yet. I'm pretty sure we will, but
He will.
it's Osprey season, so. Okay, Wesley Oaks, water main improvements. We mentioned this a little bit previously up there, but shows some of the negotiations they're doing with the water main replacement, and also utilize directional drilling, I believe, on this one.
Yes, directional drilled. They're upsizing there's a 4-inch, currently the line through the middle of the neighborhood's a 4-inch, and there's 2-inch loops. We're going with an 8-inch with 4-inch loops because we need more flow through there. And so contractors installing the lines, our crews will be installing all the services and fire hydrants and everything like that. So that project's moving along pretty smoothly thus far.
And hopefully we'll be out of there in the next handful of weeks as we can get in there and reconnect the services to the new lines and everything like that.
So there's current hydrants in there. What are they running off of? 4 inch?
They don't really get much water.
Yeah, I
out
was
of
gonna
those
say.
hydrants.
No, not with that.
Dribble.
That's why we need more flow in there.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's also gonna eliminate one crossing that goes across the golf course there
Mhm.
too, that distribution's been dying to get rid of. So, and that liability that comes along with that. All right, that's the end of the pictures. And, of course, we have the spreadsheet of the detail. Some of the points we've talked about, but a lot more detail on the dollars and whatnot as well, plus a comprehensive list of all the capital projects. So there's a lot more capital projects than what's shown in the pictures. Pictures primarily represent what we got in motion or what's going on out in the field. Many of these others are in design phase and whatnot too.
Todd, can you tell us what we might be bidding this next month, or the next couple of months?
Right, so we're down, we got a lot of our major projects now out and for award consideration. I would say the two next major projects we got are 2 elevated storage tanks. Got one on X 42 up on north end, we're doing that design in-house, and then the one on the south end, Thomas Hunton is our engineer of record on that one. So we're considering taking, and the exit 29 project is originally conceived to bid out as one project: water production facility improvements, water line improvements, and the elevated storage tank. We're considering formulating that one to break it apart and go ahead and get the tanks bid out. So
Can you show them where the tanks are?
certainly.
One's up on the North Mainland, is on the other side of 95 from Buc-ee's,
Oh, gotcha.
almost directly across.
Right, so if we look at exit 42 on the very north end of the Glynn County,
And we got this land from the Development Authority?
Yes, that's correct. With the agreement that their logo goes on it.
you get some advertising.
Oh,
Okay.
On one side, they don't get both sides.
So exit 42, like if you're heading north to Darien on 95, Buc-ee's is going in here, okay? And our site, our tank site, elevated storage tank site is this little carve out now that we own the parcel for from the development board. So as you're coming into Glynn County, you obviously already be in Glynn County, but the river's just to the north. If you're coming south of 95, our tank will be one of the first things you see coming in.
That's cool.
Exit 42, be very visible. Trade Winds is also right here.
Yeah, they got all those parcels in.
And then on the south end,
Should just hit the 3 WTP.
yes, it would. Yeah, I know what it took me right there. So if you recall from last meeting, we showed you a little video where we floated a big red balloon called Clifford. The big red balloon. Floated him up there. Our plant site is right here, and we floated the balloon down here where the proposed tank site is going to be down here to check the elevation and visibility, and so we're very clearly visible from the interstate as you're headed north, entering Glynn County. You're going to see our nice elevated storage tank with.
What's the green line going down?
That's the effluent line from the wastewater plant.
Discharge to the Mississippi River.
And that's being funded with SPOS funds.
That's correct.
And the North Mainland is from the bond fund.
That's correct.
We just gonna have our logo on that tank on the south side?
As of right now, but we're in discussions.
We're
Okay.
negotiating.
And
All right, let's see who wants to participate.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I can
The
guess.
North
who wants
Mainland
to-
tank, it's gotta have lights because of FAA, because of
Anything
close
to
to the
reduce the
airport.
cost.
Correct, it'll be lit, and, you know, all tanks are gonna have some form of lighting on them, but,
So we'll have that one out for bid before our next meeting, right?
we're working to have that one out for bid, that one, and, we're gonna talk to Thomas about breaking that out.
Hear that, Pam?
And they sent it to me.
Do all these tanks actually come with the supports for future antennas and everything?
That's the contracts with our AT&T folks, they normally mount their, we're not providing any.
We don't provide the corrals. They come back, if they want to do it, they come back and
Yeah.
add them.
They
But it's
install
not
those.
just AT&T, who's
Right.
rent out the.
Right, so when I say that, we have a company that manages those cellular contracts for us, and so they are the ones that come in and install those things, you know, as they have need for those additional locations.
You
Tanks
anticipate some?
come with the point sources to
No,
mount to.
they're not designed. They're designed against wind loads and water loads and everything. And the people that put it on there, it's self-supporting. They spread it out. In other words.
Right, so you see the
A
corral,
lot
that
of-
was
a lot
added
of the
after the
sports-
fact.
A lot of sports aren't even welded on there, magnetized on.
Really?
And some of them create problems like the Demery Road tank. We painted it 2 years ago.
It's
And
about 3 years now, but yes, sir, it's not been long.
And these two tanks that we're talking about, we probably don't want to put antennas on there unless we get a big fee. Because it's our entrance from the south to the county and entrance from the north to the county. So it's our benchmarks.
Hopefully we keep them nice and clean, but I understand the draw of the income, you know,
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
but. Oh.
But we should like to look at water tanks, so we're in that business, right?
I look at water tanks every town I go through, point
Yeah.
them out. My kids get very agitated with them.
I'm sure.
Dad's pulling over again.
Exactly. Why are we stopping here?
Jennifer's like, "Another picture of a water tank?"
Roadside attraction.
Does anybody-
Historical markers.
Yeah, right.
Anybody have any other comments? Questions? Is there a motion to adjourn?
I got one quick question, facilities, I guess, related or whatever. I know we talked, months ago back about the new federal guidelines with the lead line replacements and that kind of deal. Can you just give me an update on where we're at with that and?
Yeah, we're getting some equipment together to do some basically location. If we can pick it up with a metal detector, essentially. If it's not, can't pick it up with a metal detector, then it's not got to be replaced type situation.
Gotcha.
And then we're doing some statistical analysis on the neighborhoods that we don't have information on to figure out how many of those we need to check. Because obviously, if there's 200 houses in the neighborhood, if we check 20 of them, for example, and none of them are
Right.
lead, there's no reason to go check the other 180 of those houses. So we're doing that process now. And then working with the college, we're hopeful to potentially get some interns this summer that can help us with that project.
Oh, cool. Has there been any ruling or thought process? I know one of my concerns is obviously our liability when we start working on the other side of the meter. Has there been a federal down discussion about that? And you know,
Well,
if we
interestingly enough, I was at a conference in March where GFA, who does have funding for lead line replacements, we asked GFA what their money would go for, and GFA indicated that their responsibility stops at the meter.
Great. Great.
Now, that's state, not federal,
Right.
but in GFA's interpretation, that is the responsibility of the homeowner to fix anything behind that meter,
Mm-hmm.
which historically has been the way the process has
Right.
worked.
Right.
Exactly. Okay.
But you're gonna try to measure
You gotta check
past
both,
the meter.
you have to identify both sides, according to the federal regulations.
And my concern is that if we start messing with anything on their side, and then what happens in a month when their shower starts leaking or
There's
whatever,
that.
you know.
We would literally have to get temporary construction easements.
We're
from
gonna
the
have to get
customer
temporary
do that.
construction easements before we do anything.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
It is a much bigger challenge than simply replacing a water line.
Yeah. Yeah.
Both to get the water line replaced and, like you said, warrantying and liability after the fact is a much bigger challenge. This is a statewide problem that no utility that I'm aware of has figured out a solution for yet.
Why don't we kind of procrastinate a little bit and let some of the other.
Well, we're getting the rule is you gotta have your inventory done by October, and then you have 10 years to replace all of them. So you don't wanna get too far behind.
But we can spot check the ones we don't have to spot every one of them.
No. We have to work off the best
Estimate.
available information. So again, if there's 200, you can do a statistical analysis that says this is a representative sample of this neighborhood. Now, if we check and half of them are lead and half of them are plastic, we're gonna have to check every one of them. But if we check that in a representative sample randomly throughout the neighborhood is all plastic,
Yeah.
really no reason to check the rest of them.
And do we have to check the areas that we know already, or?
No,
that
if we
don't?
have records that
Okay.
indicate, we don't have to confirm.
Okay, all right, then. That's what I was gonna say.
That's why a lot of this exercise has been going through old records. Todd's group's been going through old records on this sort of stuff. Our asset management person has been going through these old records, trying to get as much information. The last thing we did is we got the tax information from Glynn County for when every structure in Glynn County was built. And then we can eliminate any structure that was built after 1990, because we don't have to check those, because lead services were outlawed in 1988.
Awesome.
Can I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second.
You're adjourned.
Adjourn.